Today, we're diving into the Cowboys' recent moves and focusing on some of the highlights and potential downfalls of their free agency activity. Right now, we're taking a broad look at the situation, so we're not going into each contract and assessing whether it's good or bad individually. That's something we'll break down more thoroughly later on. For now, we're providing a general overview of some of the players already on the roster and what their roles could look like moving forward. Let's start with the wide receivers. One of the more interesting additions to the team is Paris Campbell. There's still a lot we don't know about his contract, but it's likely a one-year deal with a modest salary and very few guarantees. He doesn't pose a significant threat to anyone's playing time, as he's had a very up-and-down performance in the past season. The addition of Campbell is somewhat unusual for this group, and because of that, players like Jalen Tolbert, Cavani Turpin, Jonathan Mingo, Jalen Brooks, and Ryan Flenoy still have a chance to fight for a spot. Tolbert, in particular, is someone who stood out last season. His touchdown numbers were promising, but his consistency on the field, particularly with the offensive line, left a lot to be desired. Despite that, I'm optimistic about his growth heading into his fourth year. I believe Tolbert could very well be the Cowboys' breakout receiver. Given that the class of free agent additions hasn't been overwhelming so far, Tolbert has a good shot at carving out a bigger role this season. Cavani Turpin, who recently renewed his contract for a few more years, remains an intriguing piece. However, I have some reservations. Turpin seems more like a player who can make plays on the sidelines, rather than someone who can make a big impact vertically down the field. Despite that, there's still a chance he can find a place in this offense, but I'm not expecting him to be the game changer some might hope for. Jonathan Mingo, meanwhile, will have to capitalize on the shakeup in the wide receiver group. While he received a fair amount of passes last season, his drops and the overall lack of precision on the throws didn't help his cause. Keep in mind, Mingo was selected in the 4th round, and while that isn't exactly a high pick, he still has room to improve. There's a need for improvement at the position, so Mingo's potential could be crucial going forward. Ryan Flenoy, who was selected in the 3rd day of last year's draft, is another player vying for a spot. Like Mingo, he hasn't had a chance to prove much yet, but he'll certainly be in the mix. Jalen Brooks, drafted in the 7th round 2 years ago, is also still competing for a spot. The fewer big-name free agents or first-round draft picks the Cowboys bring in, the more these guys could have a chance. However, I'd wager that at least one of Brooks or Flenoy might not make the active roster unless there are injuries. The Cowboys fan base has been anxiously waiting for them to bring in another top-tier wide receiver, and I firmly believe that will happen eventually. But so far, no major names have been added. If you had to rate the Cowboys' current wide receiver group on a scale of 1 to 10, what would your rating be? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Moving on to some other free agent news, Tyler Gayton and Terrence Steele have also been getting a lot of attention. The team has publicly praised both players and expressed their positive outlook on their performances. This is especially evident in the way the Cowboys have highlighted them both in the media and behind closed doors. So far, no additional players have come in to challenge Gayton or Steele directly, which suggests the team is prioritizing keeping both of them as key figures in their offensive line. Gayton's dedication has been particularly noticeable. He's been hitting the gym daily, showing a strong commitment to improving his physical fitness, and that's encouraging. However, there's still the issue of his penalty problems, which have been a bit too frequent. It's simply unacceptable for him to be committing more than 1 penalty per game. If he can cut down on those mistakes, I think the confidence in his ability will grow, and he can continue to evolve as a player, especially as he gets more time on the field. The coaching staff, particularly Clint Clayton-Adams, seems confident that they can get more out of Steele than the previous coaching regime did. There's still a bit of a risk with that strategy, but given the investment the Cowboys made and the fact that Steele was a first-round pick, I'm not opposed to the team giving these two a chance to prove themselves. Of course, if things don't work out, they'll have the option to reevaluate the situation next year. Will Grier is another focal point for the Cowboys at quarterback. Right now, he's the backup to Dak Prescott, but there's no other quarterback on the roster at the moment. With Cooper Rush heading to Baltimore and Trey Lance's future with the team still uncertain, Grier is, for now, the only backup behind Prescott. Interestingly, We haven't seen Greer play a regular season game since 2019, aside from some preseason action. This is almost hard to believe, but it is the reality. The Cowboys might still bring in another quarterback, but as of now, Greer has gone from just another depth piece to the backup quarterback, which is a bit of an unexpected win for him. Still, this situation could change down the line. As we're talking about potential changes, there's one more area of free agency that is catching a lot of attention. There's a growing conversation surrounding the Cowboys' financial situation. Despite their investments in several free agents, the details of the contracts still aren't entirely clear, and the team still has plenty of room under the salary cap. Reports indicate that the Cowboys have about $40 million in cap space, with some estimates placing it closer to $38 million. Regardless, the team is still sitting on a substantial amount of cap space, and it's interesting to note that they haven't used all of that room yet. Historically, the Cowboys have been reluctant to splurge in free agency, and it seems like this year they're sticking with that cautious approach. If you had to rate their moves so far, what would you give them on a scale from A to F? Drop your ratings in the comments section of today's discussion. The team's caution in free agency is becoming more apparent when you look at their missed opportunities. There's been a lot of talk about how the Cowboys were pursuing a few high-profile players, only to watch them sign elsewhere. For example, one player ended up signing a 3-year, $36 million deal with another team, while another got a 3-year contract worth $31.5 million. Neither of these players felt the Cowboys were the right fit, despite the team's apparent interest. It's been a while since the Cowboys have won a bidding war for a big name in free agency, and they've been criticized for being too conservative in this area. Moving forward, we'll have to wait and see if the team can shift their approach and make a splash, or if they'll continue to play it safe. There's also the matter of a linebacker on the roster who could face some challenges. The team recently brought in 2 new linebackers to potentially play ahead of him. With a base salary of around $3,260,000, this linebacker is now the 4th on the depth chart. The Cowboys could save a good amount of money by releasing him, which becomes even more significant when you consider that the team has made significant investments in new talent. Given that the team is prioritizing the new additions, this linebacker could find himself on the outside looking in unless he steps up his performance. It's clear that the Cowboys are distancing themselves from this player, especially when considering the possible selection of another linebacker in the draft. This leads to the question of who the loser is in free agency. With the Cowboys making strategic moves, it's clear that not everyone will have a place on this roster come September. That said, I believe this linebacker could very well be one of those casualties unless he shows significant improvement. Lastly, it's crucial to address the situation with Micah Parsons, which, at this point, isn't being handled in the best possible way. The Cowboys haven't done themselves any favors by waiting so long to extend Parsons' contract. If they'd acted earlier, they might have had more leverage in negotiations. But as it stands, they've allowed the market to continue to grow, and now Parsons is likely going to get paid in a way that sets a new precedent. It's expected that his new deal could approach $40 million, with a hefty portion of it guaranteed. Continuing from where we left off, the focus now shifts to the evolving situation with Micah Parsons, which is clearly something that needs more attention from the Cowboys. Given that the market has been consistently increasing, it's becoming more evident that the Cowboys' handling of this contract renewal has been less than ideal. They had the opportunity to address this situation earlier, but they waited too long, which has now led to a more complicated negotiation process. Projections suggest that Parsons could sign a deal worth around $40 million, with up to 70% of that being guaranteed. This would set a new benchmark for the team, and it's a move that everyone expects to happen, but the timing remains uncertain. The Cowboys need to act quickly here, or they risk losing the ability to negotiate for a more team-friendly deal. If they had been proactive last season, they could have avoided this scenario, but now they'll likely have to pay more to keep Parsons happy and locked in long-term. What's frustrating about this situation is that, while the Cowboys have shown some urgency in other areas of free agency, they've been much more passive when it comes to securing their star players like Parsons. The team's reluctance to pay up for their top talent is becoming an ongoing issue. They've repeatedly faced challenges in compensating their key players at market value, and it seems like they keep missing opportunities to ensure their roster remains competitive with other top teams in the league. Parsons is arguably one of the best defensive players in the NFL right now, and the longer the Cowboys delay his extension, the more pressure there will be on both sides. The longer this drags on, the harder it's going to be to keep him at a reasonable price. As time goes by, it's becoming clear that the Cowboys may have to adjust their expectations for what they're willing to offer Parsons, or they risk pushing him to the market where he could command an even bigger deal. In the meantime, the Cowboys have continued to make moves with the understanding that their future depends on their ability to secure their key pieces. Still, one of the concerns for this team is how they've dealt with some of the other positions. For example, the running back position is another area where the Cowboys have to make some tough decisions. While they've brought in 2 new players to compete for spots, the contracts they've signed aren't enough to guarantee a place on the team for anyone. This uncertainty at running back has put a lot of pressure on those players to perform during camp and preseason. One particular running back is now in a very tough spot, as the team's investment in new talent has relegated him to a backup role, and unless he significantly improves, his future with the team is uncertain. He didn't receive consistent touches last season and didn't make enough plays when given the opportunity. His size also raises concerns about his ability to handle the workload of a primary ball carrier. Given the depth the Cowboys have at the position, this player could find himself on the outside looking in come final roster cuts. It's clear that the Cowboys' decision-making process here will have a significant impact on their 2024 season. The decisions they make now in free agency, in addition to the players they choose to keep and develop, will dictate their ability to remain competitive in the NFC. With a mix of veteran leadership and young talent, the team has a solid foundation, but they need to ensure they're making the right moves to improve in key areas. If they don't address the quarterback situation soon, for example, they could find themselves in a similar position as last year when the backup role became a point of concern. Having a reliable backup quarterback is essential in today's NFL, and with the current situation surrounding Will Grier, the Cowboys may want to reconsider their options sooner rather than later. As the Cowboys continue to navigate free agency and the draft, the pressure will only mount. They need to ensure that they're securing talent in key positions while also making sure that their existing stars are compensated fairly. The fact that they've managed to keep a relatively clean cap situation while still making a few strategic moves is a good sign, but they need to be willing to make the big splash when it counts. So far, they've been cautious in free agency, and while that has its merits, it could also be holding them back from taking the next step. Now is the time for the Cowboys to push forward, lock in their key players, and make sure that they have the depth and talent needed to compete for a championship. In the end, the Cowboys are walking a fine line. They've made some solid moves in free agency, but the true test will come when they have to decide how to handle their biggest contracts, especially with players like Micah Parsons. Will they learn from the past and secure their key players early, or will they let this situation spiral into another negotiation headache? That remains to be seen, but one thing is for certain. The decisions they make in the coming months will shape the future of the franchise for years to come. As always, the pressure is on Jerry Jones and the front office to put the team in the best position to win now, while also planning for the future. Every move they make counts, and the fans are watching closely to see if they can finally take that next step toward a Super Bowl. Time will tell if this Cowboys team is ready to reach their full potential or if they'll continue to fall just short of greatness. The next few weeks could be crucial in determining whether this is the year the Cowboys finally put it all together. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Dallas Cowboys. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. The football world is buzzing with speculation. Could Lamar Jackson, one of the most electrifying quarterbacks in NFL history, be making a shocking move to the Dallas Cowboys? Whispers of this blockbuster transfer have set social media ablaze, leaving fans and analysts scrambling to assess the possibility. While Jackson remains under contract with the Baltimore Ravens, the thought of him donning the iconic Cowboys star has ignited a frenzy of excitement and skepticism alike. For the Cowboys, adding a player of Jackson's caliber would be nothing short of a seismic shift. His dual-threat abilities, coupled with a proven track record of dominance, could elevate Dallas from perennial contenders to outright Super Bowl favorites. Dak Prescott has been a solid leader, but questions about his ability to deliver on the biggest stage persist. Jackson, a two-time MVP with an uncanny ability to take over games, could be the missing piece in Jerry Jones' quest for another championship. Of course, the logistics of such a move are daunting. Jackson inked a massive 5-year, $260 million deal with the Ravens in 2023, making any trade scenario a financial and strategic puzzle. The Cowboys would need to part with significant draft capital or key players to lure Baltimore into a deal. Additionally, fitting Jackson's contract under their salary cap would require major roster adjustments. But if Jones has proven anything, it's that he's willing to make bold moves to keep the Cowboys in the spotlight. The prospect of Jackson leading America's team is tantalizing, but would it be the right fit? Dallas has traditionally built its offense around a strong pocket passer with an elite supporting cast. Jackson's improvisational style and run-heavy approach would demand a shift in offensive philosophy. However, with playmakers like CeeDee Lamb and a solid offensive line, the potential for fireworks is undeniable. A Cowboys offense led by Jackson could redefine the franchise's identity and strike fear into defenses across the league. For now, the rumor remains just that, a tantalizing what-if scenario that fuels endless debate. Yet, in the ever-unpredictable landscape of the NFL, no possibility can be dismissed outright. If Jerry Jones sees an opportunity to land a generational talent like Lamar Jackson, expect the unexpected. Cowboys Nation, buckle up. This offseason could be one for the ages. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Dallas Cowboys, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We always look forward to your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.